This is Living Power with Dan Hurst.
Now, I want you to notice something very, very important here. I want to talk a little bit about this issue of faith. Because faith is an act of the will, but it's based on information. Faith is an act of the will, but it is based on information. God never asks you to believe in something that you know nothing about. Think about that. You know, we think, well, you got to believe in God, and yet you say, I don't know God. And what is that? But yet God doesn't ask you to believe in anything that you don't know anything about. So what's actually happening here? Well, you see, faith, and this is really a common misconception, faith is not believing in the unknown. Faith is not believing in the unknown. Faith is trusting the unknown because of what is known. Faith is trusting the unknown because of what is known. Now, the King James Version says this about faith. It's in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, and it says this: Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. I heard my dad preach on this verse, I don't know, hundreds of times. Faith is the evidence or the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And I never could really get my head around, what does that really, really mean? I use the English Standard Version for teaching. I study out of King James a lot, Schofield, and a number of different translations, and get into the Greek and into the Hebrew to study. But I teach, now I'm teaching out of the English Standard Version. That's when you see the verses up on the screen, those are normally English Standard Version. The English Standard Version interprets that passage this way. Look at this. By faith, now faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. Now stop. If it is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen, then what it's saying is this is what faith does. Faith does these things. So if you would take that word is, then you can begin to understand what that verse is saying. It's saying faith does, or it creates, or it accomplishes the assurance of things hoped for. Now remember, hope in the Bible means confident anticipation. That's exactly what the word means, both in the Hebrew and in the Greek. It doesn't mean wishing. It doesn't mean, oh, I wish that, that the Chiefs would win the Super Bowl. That's not hope. That's wishing. Hope in the Bible is confident anticipation. I know something is happening, or I know something is about to happen. May not completely understand it, but I know it, and I anticipate it. That's what hope is. So faith gives you this assurance that something is going to happen. An assurance that something is up, that God is up to something. May not know what it is, but you know that God is up to something. And then it also gives you the conviction of those things that are coming. The conviction that something is going to happen, and I don't really know everything that's going on, but I know that something is going on. I know that God is up to something. Now that is what faith does. That's the concept of faith. And then he goes on and explains in verses 2 and 3, for by that faith, by it, the people of old received their commendation. What was the commendation? Well, the rest of chapter 11 of Hebrews talks about it's the commendation of these people who had faith, people who trusted God and did what God told them to do, and it was considered an act of faith. What it was saying was that they just simply said, God, you told us to do it, we'll do it. Didn't even really understand it all. I mean, how many times have you heard the story of Noah and wondered, what was he thinking? That had to be really, really odd. He's out in the desert and God tells him to build a boat, and they then take two of every animal, and not every animal, but of the animals that God directed him to take. Some people think that he took two of every animal in the world. And no, there were specific animals that God told him to take 2 by 2. And apparently a couple of them were carrying fleas. That's all I can figure out. But the point is that when you look at what was happening that Noah was going through, Noah was just simply obeying God. Didn't make a whole lot of sense to him at the time, but God said it, so he did it. It just, okay, if that's what you say, I'm doing it. And imagine what he went through, the ridicule that he went through, and even the doubts that he must have gone through at some point, going, well, I'm not sure I really understand this, but okay, God. Well, that's life. God's doing the same thing in your life now. There are things that God's leading you through, and all you're doing is just simply, well, I'm not sure I understand this, but okay. If that's what you want, God, okay. Don't know that it makes any sense or that I agree with this, but okay. Listen, that's what God's looking for in your life. He's looking for okay. He's looking for, okay, God. Don't understand it, but I'm following through. I'm gonna stick with this because you said so. When I moved back to Kansas City and lost my job and couldn't find a job, McDonald's wouldn't even hire me. And I guess they were afraid I was going to eat the profits or something. I don't know. But they wouldn't hire me. And by the way, McDonald's is now a client, and boy, are they paying for it. McDonald's would not hire me. I couldn't get a job anywhere. But I remember just deciding, okay, God, I'm going to see if this is really true. If what you say in your word is really true, I'm going to just do it your way. And Marcia and I made this conscious choice. We were just going to be faithful to what we knew the Word of God said, and we were going to do it God's way. And we sat down with our boys, and we just said, things are going to be different for a while. Daddy doesn't have a job, and as soon as I get a job, then we'll be able to go places, maybe not McDonald's, but we'll go places that we want to go to. But right now, things are going to be a little different. But we decided we're going to do it God's way. And if I go down the tubes, and I remember saying this, God, I'm going to do it your way. And if I go down the tubes, you go with me. And that was my attitude. God, I'm going to do it your way. And if it falls apart, you're to blame. And we took that approach to us. And I will tell you, it was 10 months before I was able to find a job. 10 months of nothing. And we lost a house in Florida. I mean, everything fell apart in our lives, it seemed like. But you know what? That also was one of the sweetest times that we'd ever been through in our lives. When we learned that we could trust God and that God provided for us. And there were times we saw miracle after miracle after miracle in our life. There'd be a check that would show up in the mail from somebody up north that we had never heard of before. I mean, honestly, people that we did not know, people that we have to this day don't know because they didn't tell us who they were. And we'd just get like a money order or something like that in the mail. And we wouldn't know who it was from. It was postmarked like Iowa. I didn't even know they had people up in Iowa at that point. And there were things that God did. There was a time I remember we came home and there was food in our refrigerator. Now, how people got into our house, I don't know, because nobody else had the key except the landlord, and I know the landlord didn't do it. Maybe the landlord did. I don't know. But the interesting thing was the landlord. They were Muslim. They practiced Islam, and they were so watchful of what we were doing, so careful about they really wanted to know. And we had this conversation. I'd say the name, but we're recording, and I really don't want to put this out on the internet. But our landlord came to us one day, and we had told him, I said, we don't know what we're going to do. I don't have a job. I want to make sure that you get paid, but if you want us to move out, we'll move out immediately, and I'll get you paid for, what we owe you for this month. And our landlord said, no, I told my husband, these people are Christians. They will take care of what they're responsible for. And I thought, Lord, don't let me fail. I don't want to fail you. I don't want to leave a bad witness here. God was so faithful. We were able to, and we missed 2 or 3 months. She said, I know you're going to make it up. And we did. We paid it all, completely. I saw her just last month. We were at the grocery store, and I saw her, and I just went up and gave her a hug, and it was so nice to see her. And I said, you don't know what an influence you were in our life. And she said, you don't know what an influence you were in my life. Now, I want to tell you did God do that just so that we would be a witness during that time? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. But I do know this, that God stayed with us during that difficult time. He brought us through that time. It was a sweet time of seeing God work. Was it difficult? Of course it was difficult. Would I want to do it again? Absolutely not. But I may have to. If that's what happens in life, it does happen. But I'm willing to let God lead. I'm willing to stay with him. And if we go down the tubes, he goes with me. And this is what was happening with this guy. This guy was saying, look, I'm ready to believe. I'm ready to do whatever I have to do. And I will have faith in you because I know what I've experienced, and I'm going to trust you for the future. That's what faith is. Faith is not based on just believing in the unknown, but it's based on the information that you do have, that you know that has happened, and you can trust the unknown. And so that's what Hebrews 11 is talking about. By faith, verse 3, by faith we understand that the universe was created by the Word of God, so that what is seen was not made out of things that are visible. We've had this experience. In fact, in Romans chapter 1, verse 20, we're told that it's his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and his divine nature, that have been clearly perceived. That's what Romans 1:20 says. That his nature, we've seen it. We know that there is a God and that he has been there, and it has been understood, Romans 1:20 says, since the creation of the world. People have known that. There has been that information there. It has been real that God did something. And based on that limited information, we can begin to believe, as the blind man did and said, I'm ready to believe. Don't understand it all, but I'm ready to start with what I do know. I'm ready to start with what I know. Which takes us to that information, or that definition that we give for faith all the time. Faith, the word faith is the word pistis, P-I-S-T-I-S, pistis, and it means trustworthy conviction. And the examples of faith that are given in Hebrews 11 are revealed that every person that was considered to have faith was somebody who just simply said, okay, God, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. I'll obey. And that's why we define faith now as trusting obedience to the known will of God. It's not the unknown. It's not saying, okay, I'm believing the unknown. No, you're not. You're playing games if you are. You're trusting the unknown because of the information that you have now of what is known, of what is real in your life, of where you are now. So based on what you do know, that is faith, trusting obedience to the known will of God. And because of what is known, then you can begin to trust the unknown, because you know that God is trustworthy. So little by little by little. And so this idea, and I hear Christians say this all the time, well, from now on I'm going to trust God. No, you're not. You're going to believe God for the known, and you're going to trust the unknown. But you don't make a conscious decision, okay, I don't care, I don't know anything, but I'm going to trust God from now on. No, you trust God because of what is known. And so because of that, because he has proven himself, you can trust him and take little baby steps to understand the unknown, to just trust that God is going to be who God says he is in the unknown.
On behalf of Dan Hurst and the Open Class, we want to thank you for watching. We hope it was a blessing.